friends, it's Sherry Ricard with the Real Girl Talk podcast. I'm an author, speaker, business leader, and adversity recovery expert. I'm bringing you fabulous guests, lifestyle tips, and a weekly dose of inspiration to help you create a beautiful life. So grateful that you're here. Now let's dive in.
The loss of a loved one is a nearly universal emotional crisis. Unprocessed grief and painful feelings can be buried, leaving you to feel numb. But there is hope. Certified grief counselor, RN, and author Sherry Ricard shares her story of how to cope in her first book, Wake Up Call, A Mother's Grief Journey, after the loss of her 17-year-old son. This book, along with Sherry's other books, are available on Amazon as well as on SherryRicard.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to Real Girl Talk. Thank you so much for joining me. This is the second part of our self-awareness two-part series, special Saturday series. So a little bit separate from our regular weekly podcast. I thought it was important to talk about self-awareness. This subject has been coming up many times, and we talked about it in a previous episode, which was part 1. If you haven't had the opportunity to listen to part 1, jump back over and listen to the self-awareness episode, part 1, because this is part 2. And we had left off talking about some examples of priorities that people often include, which priorities are going to be money and family, sex, respect, security, stability, material possessions, and of course, our peace and mental comfort. And we talked about that just a little bit, but I want to really talk about looking at yourself over time. So look at how you have changed over time. And this is an add-on from what we previously discussed. So again, if you weren't able to listen to part 1, you may want to jump over and listen to that short episode before moving forward into part 2 so you can kind of follow along. But I want you to look at your past and think about what has happened to you over your lifetime that has affected you and how you act and think today. Look at how you've changed as a person, because this can really reveal a lot about you and the way that you act and the things that you do, because our current behaviors are actually built on our past experiences. For example, maybe you tend to get really defensive around alcoholics or drug addicts, or you're very harsh to people, and you don't perceive people that have addictions very well. When you think about it, it may be because someone important to you, a particular family member or friend, being addicted to drugs or alcohol has caused you a lot of pain. And this pain in your family growing up affected you as an adult. And this would explain how you're stronger willed and you're stronger than the normal reaction to a behavior, for this particular behavior from someone. So that's just an example of how we perceive our past and how we take our past and those perceptions and bring it into our future as an adult. So just a quick example. So check yourself when you experience these really strong emotions. Sometimes you'll find that getting really angry, sad, and happy, or even excited, and understanding what sets you off stronger than a normal reaction, you'll actually discover what the root and the cause is. And this can help you understand yourself better, which is what we're talking about, self-awareness. Another example may be that you really get angry about people talking during a movie. Maybe it's something like a little pet peeve. Are you really angry about them talking in the movie? I mean, what is really setting you off? Maybe you take it as a sign of personal disrespect, and it's not the actual talking in the movie. Since this anger really doesn't help the situation, you might be better off just trying to find ways to be less concerned about people that disrespect you and they aren't really gearing it towards you. They're just being disrespectful, because we can't control other people and what they do, especially those talking in a movie, unless we just want to turn around and say, hey, listen, you're distracting me. I can't hear what's going on, and I paid for this movie too. But my point is, if you become angry and furious and you sit that through that whole movie with your arms crossed, just huffing and puffing, it may not be that they're talking. It may be because you have some issues with feeling disrespected by others. So again, being self-aware. So watch out too for things like repression and transference. So what is this? Repression is when you don't want to think about something, so you help yourself to forget it ever happened. An example of this might be that a friend has wronged you in some way, maybe by betrayal or a trust issue, and that you feel that you're going to remain friends, then you need to just sweep it under the rug. We could be talking about a spouse as well. The truth is that it's never really swept under the rug, right? It comes back and it attacks you in some other form. You need to recognize this behavior and address it with your friends or your spouse, whoever it may be, immediately, and then decide whether you're going to move forward and save that friendship. Transference is when you emotionally react to something, but what you're really reacting to is something else. Both of these behaviors are they're very concerning, and they're also very unhealthy. Finding out why you want to handle a certain situation or how you handle a certain situation is going to determine your happiness and whether you can be healthy in other situations. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to give you an example. You may think that you're not sad about your grandma dying, but when your family decides to get rid of her favorite old chair, you get really ticked off and upset. You're not really upset about the chair being gone, right? It was stained anyway, and it smelled funny, and it probably had radioactive material foam in it. But you're upset that your grandma's gone. So what's important is that you recognize this behavior and you address the real issue, which is the grief that you chose to ignore, and it came out in a different form, which was towards your family for getting rid of a piece of old furniture. Now, I want you to notice how and when you talk to yourself as well. So we're going to kind of transition now into what we think and what we say. And this goes back. We're always talking about self-awareness. So do you turn every conversation you have into a conversation about yourself? Listen to what I'm saying and be honest. Do you make jokes at your own expense when you talk about yourself? Perhaps you do. So you need to recognize this behavior. And a lot of times when someone makes jokes about themselves constantly, they do that as a defense mechanism in order to basically put the joke out there because they feel like it's coming towards them anyway from maybe somebody else. So they tell the joke about themselves first. It's really kind of self-sabotaging to do that, but it's also a defense mechanism. And if you don't recognize that in yourself, you're probably thinking of someone right now that you recognize that trait in. So how and when you talk about yourself can reveal a lot about how you think and how you perceive yourself. It's healthy to talk about yourself sometimes, and it's good to realize that you can't do everything and you can't say everything just perfectly in the right situation, but you should really pay attention to extremes and think about why you go on those extremes about yourself. In other words, you go on and on and on and on. For example, your friend might have landed a big contract in work, but when you're talking about it, you turn the conversation to be about you working or remodeling your home. This might be because you feel embarrassed that you've never had that type of deal or opportunity, or maybe you don't work outside of the home and you feel inferior to your friend. So you want to make yourself feel busy and important, or maybe even accomplished by making the conversation about you. Now, again, when we're talking about self-awareness, I don't want you sitting there thinking, aha, this is just about so-and-so, or this is just about Mary or Trish, and you're pointing the finger. I want you to look in the mirror while you're thinking about these things, because what I'm talking about could be a direct reflection of you and not necessarily someone else. Really hard to be honest with yourself when we're talking about these things, but I'm telling you, if you will really be honest and real and authentic with yourself, you can really heighten your awareness and become more self-aware of what you say, how you say it, and why and when you react to certain situations. Look at how and why you interact even with others. When you interact with people, do you tend to put them down? Do you make jokes at someone else's expense or casually make light of a new opportunity that has come their way? Maybe you've noticed that you only choose to spend time with people that make more money than you, or maybe you choose to spend time with people that make less money than you. There's a reason behind both. Behaviors like this can also teach you something about yourself and what is really important to you. Another example, if you're choosing to only spend time with friends that have more money than you, it may show that you want to feel wealthier by letting yourself pretend you're equal to your friend in that way. If you choose to associate with people that have less money than you, it may show that this is the only way you can feel superior to them. Who am I talking to today? Think about what you hear versus what was said as well. So this is another example. This is another thing that you can look out for when you're examining your own interactions with your friends and family. So you might find that what you hear is something like, I need your help, when what they actually said or meant was, I want your company. Think about that. Revealing that you have a strong need to feel useful to others can be an example of feeling inferior or feeling lonely. Often, you're going to see a struggle in families when one person is the savior and the other depends on that particular person all of the time. The role of savior can be exhausting, guys, and it leaves little room for that savior person to feel safe and comforted because they're always the ones doing it. Now, this could be you, or you may be recognizing this in a particular family member. A fun and enlightening experience can be to write down your biography. This is one of the best ways that I teach people to become self-aware and get really, really real. So writing your biography is basically going to be 500 words, and I want you to do it in 20 minutes. And I know some of you are sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, here she goes again with the writing. I don't want to write. But I'm telling you, I'm preaching to you right now. Okay? I'm preaching to you right now. If I'm telling you over and over that writing is healing and you're not doing it, but you're still hurting and looking for ways to heal, you're just wanting to be in that self-sabotaging spot. Because doing the same thing over and over and it's not working and you expect a different result, but yet you keep doing the same thing over and over and it's not working is the definition of what? Insanity. So I want you to try something different. Now we're talking about self-awareness. However, writing every day can be so rewarding and so fulfilling and so healing. Trust me, I did it and I do it. So back to your biography. I want you to write 500 words in 20 minutes. Now listen, I don't want you counting the words. I just want you to write. I want you to set a timer, and for 20 minutes, I want you to write like you're writing your biography. So it's all about you. This is going to require you to be very fast in writing or type very fast and think less about what you want to include. And it's really going to help you identify what your brain thinks is most important when defining you. Now, for 20 minutes, Like I said, I don't want you counting the words. I just want you to write, and hopefully it comes up to 500 words. And you can do it if you're just writing as it flows. As you're thinking about what you want to write about, it could be upsetting because you weren't able to get things out on paper originally about what you wanted to say about yourself. And this is the time to actually do it. Because in today's society, we want everything to be just perfect, and we want everything to be right now. And if you're not self-aware in who you really are, it's really hard to get to the next step of where you want to be. Okay, so I want you to do that exercise for me. Now, also, I want you to think about the teenagers of today and what lessons you can actually teach your children. Today, the teens today, they're far worse at demanding immediate gratification than I was as a child. Right now, the kids today, I'm sorry, I know I have some millennial listeners and I love you guys with all my heart, but we live in a world of entitlement. We live in a world where we expect. We expect things to be given to us. We expect things to happen to us. And you should to a certain extent, but guys, you got to work for what you want. You have to work for it. We have to work for it with expectation. And becoming self-aware of who we are, in the core of who we are, is so important to success and abundance and fulfillment and emotional and physical support. It's just healthier to know who we are, because we spend so much time pretending to be someone that we're not. And I see it happen over and over and over again because we think that we're not worthy of who we actually are. We look at social media today and we think every single person has a great life. Well, do you know why you think that? It's because that's what they perceive. That's what they put out there, and you're perceiving it as everyone has the best life and they have a much better life than you, but that's because that's all that was put out there. If people put out there, along with their happy birthday parties, what actually happened the week prior or maybe the month prior, we would look at other people's lives completely different than we do now when we're looking through Facebook and social media. And I know I'm touching someone right now. I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. I want you to look at the way that you react in tough situations too. When things get really, really tough, such as when you lose a job, you lose a friendship, or a relationship ends, you're going through a breakup or a divorce, or even when a loved one dies, or maybe someone's threatening you. There's more hidden traits to a character that you really didn't realize that was there. Think about how you react to these situations. Think about what kind of tensions that you have when these particular situations occur in your life, these adversities occur. Why do you react the way that you do? Why have you reacted the way that you have in the past over certain situations? How do you want to react? What do you want to change? Would you be more likely to react now to situations that occurred in the past if you knew then what you know now? I know some of you are saying, oh, heck no, I would have done things totally different. It's because you're more self-aware. You've grown, of course. We all grow and we become wiser through experiences, but you're also more self-aware the older you get than what you were in the past. And sometimes we get stuck in the past of being who we wish we still were, and we don't allow ourselves to grow and go through this life journey of experiences and adversities and setbacks because no one wants to face them, when in reality, facing those setbacks and challenges is what makes us who we are today. Okay, so guys, I really, really hope that you are enjoying this part 2 of this episode. And before we get off this topic, I want to dive into personality traits really quick, because I promised that we would do that in part one, because when you when you recognize a particular trait or personality in yourself as well as others, it's going to help you understand other people better, and it's going to help in conversations, it's going to help with relationships, and on and on and on. So we're going to talk about a couple of different color personality types, and I have those listed in my book Strong Women, and I'm going to go over those for you. So it's red, yellow, blue, and green. And let me see if you recognize yourself in one of these traits. And you can also recognize those in your family and friends. So let's talk about the red personality people. They're strong leaders. They're fast-paced thinkers. They are risk takers. They live very purposeful. They have a really strong will and drive. Their patience, not so much. They obviously have a lot of energy, and they can be very competitive, but they also are very rational. You may recognize many of these qualities in reds as that are in many leaders, as they take ownership in things. They need to be fast paced in their thinking. And like I said, they take risk. Then they're also very confident with their decisions that they make. Now, things that reds don't like. They don't like bickering. And remember, they have less patience and people, and they have less patience in themselves because they tend to want things right then, although they're really dedicated to working for them. They don't like people that are very vague, and they don't like people that ramble on. They value time. So again, they don't waste their own time because they value it. Now, another thing that they do is they like to stick to business. If you're having a business conversation with a red personality, they like to stay on track. These personality types, they focus on thinking, and they don't ask irrelevant questions. So if they're asking you a question, it's because they truly want to know the answer. They can, like I said, get very impatient if things don't fit right into their schedule. But lastly, don't try to take control of a red. They're natural born leaders, and they always like to feel they're in control. So I know some of you are going, I know plenty of reds. So how do you react to someone with a red personality? If you're doing business, get to business quickly with them. Don't hem-haw around in a conversation. When you're interacting with a red, be very precise, give them the facts, and avoid little details. Talk to them about results. So you're going to sell a red based on results and outcomes, not on anything else. They need to hear these results and these outcomes to make decisions. Okay, so be ready to have that conversation with them. Use their time efficiently because they are not time wasters. They're very fast-paced thinkers, like I said, so they tend to move really quickly in their thoughts, but they're great people to bounce ideas off of. So if you know a red and you want to bounce some ideas off of someone, that's the one to do it with. They're also very, very confident. And you have to be confident when you're talking to a red. So let's move to a yellow personality traits. Yellows are the life and soul of the party. Okay, so they're very sociable. They're very expressive, imaginative. They tend to be very enthusiastic about their projects and things that are going on in their life. They're very informal, but they're also optimistic and animated. Their imaginations can sometimes run away with them, as they are very fast-paced thinkers as well. Yellows are very relationship focused. They are also visionaries with high energy. Now, yellows don't like it when you suppress your opinions or you get into really vague details. They're social animals, and they don't like it when you're too impersonal. They like that one-on-one. They don't like it when you're real business-like or you're task-oriented or you need to weave this into the conversation. They try to be very creative, and they are very creative, and they may not like it when somebody feels detached in a conversation. So you want to always make sure that you're in it and you're in that conversation and you're not looking around the room when you're chatting with a yellow. The best way to interact with them, the key to interacting with a yellow, is to socialize before mentioning any business. So whereas a red doesn't like to chit chat and him haw around, a yellow likes for you to do that. So recognize that personality trait if you're doing business with them. To get into the good talks about the opinions of others. So they really like to share other people's opinions on a particular project, whereas reds are the ones that think they have the answers. And they're very coachable, but they also are very confident in what they're portraying out there. And I'm more or less talking more about when it comes to business. Okay. So with a yellow, you want to offer your ideas and importantly, use a little humor when you're being sociable, and also acknowledge their input. They really like that. Now we're going to jump into the blue personality traits. Blues, they are very deep thinkers. They're analytical for sure, and they're very detailed focus and formal in their thinking. They can come across as being a little aloof, but they're very deliberate in their approach, and they're very systematic and precise. They pay attention to detail. They like things in their place. They're very organized people. Okay. And they're very good with time management skills. They are sticklers for time. They don't like it when people are late. And they also like it when people kind of push them and encourage them towards a particular task. So they take time in their thinking, and they're a little bit slower in making decisions. So they're a slower paced thinker in comparison to the red and the yellow. Blues can also come across as perfectionists because they're very logical thinkers and being very precise and deliberate in their approach to problems and solutions. So blues like to have all the facts, and then they logically put things together and answer when appropriate. Are you recognizing someone? I will tell you that blues they don't like it when somebody comes across disorganized. So with a blue, they're very tidy, and they expect their friends and family to be the same way, or you're probably going to get some eye rolling from the blues. Try not to be late for an event that they're having, because they don't like that, and they're never going to be late for yours unless it's, an emergency. Try not to be too pushy. They don't like real pushy people, but they do like the opinions of others. They don't like it when people are vague. So make sure you have lots of details and be prepared to have lots of questions thrown at you by a blue, because remember, they like to think things through before they make a decision. Now, if you're interacting with a blue personality, be well prepared when dealing with them. So you're going to have to get into detail. They love to get all the facts. So make sure you have everything lined up. Be very specific and logical in your approach with them. Listening is very important to a blue. So listen carefully to what they have to say when you're having interaction, conversation, business, whatever it is, if you're trying to influence them in some way. We could be talking about your spouse. So you can use the same tricks of the trade with them. Give them time to respond though. Okay, because remember, they're slower paced thinkers. Be a little more formal in your approach because they tend to be a little more businesslike. Last but not least are the greens. So the greens are really cool and laid back. They're relaxed. They're patient. Their best described personality trait would be they just like things to be really calm. They like everyone to get along. They're a little bit easier going, and they are actually pretty informal in their approach with things. They're social, but they focus on relationships, so they can come across as a little emotional type people. They're much slower paced thinkers than, of course, the reds. They can be very diplomatic type people. They are also very understanding and agreeable. I think greens tend to be a little bit people pleasers sometimes. They say yes a lot of times when they really mean no. So The green is the go between, it's the go between the reds and the yellows. So they're much faster paced thinkers and they're not people pleasers, whereas greens are. So they don't like conflict, but they also tend to be the facilitator of conflicts. Things that greens don't like, they cannot stand pushy people and they do not like being put on the spot. Greens absolutely hate this. So don't do it to them, especially if you're trying to do business with them. Don't try to dominate the discussion or rush things. They don't like it when people make decisions for them. So try to avoid doing that. Don't be abrupt. Explain in full and do not make wild claims or demands of them because they will be very standoffish. Okay? The way to interact with them is just to be friendly, be very genuine, be very authentic in the interest that you have with them. You might want to chat with them a little bit before trying to do business or trying to influence them in some way. It's really important when you're interacting with a green to develop some trust first and be a little informal, less threatening if you're trying to sell them in some way. But however, be alert for the nonverbal signs of concern from a green. Remember, they tend to say yes when they really mean no. So watch their body language because they tend to tell all with their body language. They may cross their arms and they're nodding yes, but their arms are crossed, which means they actually mean no. So you really want to uncover their true needs of what they want and ask questions before you really just try to sell them something, because then they may tend to be unhappy. So I hope this really, really helped, guys. I really want you to think about self-awareness and where you stand in everything that we talked about in the first part of self-awareness series, as well as this one. I'd really like to know your thoughts. I really would. So you can always email me at info@sherryricard.com. You can follow me on social media. On Facebook, it is Empowerment is Beauty. And in Instagram, it's Empowerment is Beauty. Feel free to follow, leave comments. You can also jump back onto iTunes. That would be so awesome if you would do that. I know you hear me say that a lot, but guys, it really, really does help me in the rankings and gets Real Girl Talk podcast out so that I am able to jump up in the rankings and get more exciting guests. I've had so many cool guests. I mean, come on, CEOs, business owners. I've had celebrities. I've had so many cool people on my show that bring so many golden nuggets, so many business tips and inspiration and just really true, authentic stories. And I want to continue to do that for you guys. So if you can, jump back over to iTunes, just hit the 5-star button, write a quick review on how Real Girl Talk has helped you. If any of the episodes have touched you, I really want to hear from you. I'm here to serve in any way I can. And remember to step outside your comfort zone, guys, because nothing really exciting happens in the comfort zone. Never, ever forget to keep your faith in God and fuel your empowerment tank. Just like you put gas in your car, you have to continually fuel your inspiration and your empowerment tank as well every single day. And until next time, have a blessed day.